Good evening and welcome to Paranormal Roundtable, PRT for short. My name is Josh Turner, also known as Wolf. Most of my friends in my daily life call me Wolf, and you can call me Wolf too if you consider me a friend. And I wanted to let everybody know we have a show, and a link to that show's website. It's called prtpodcast.com. That's prtpodcast.com. You can hit me up through my email, which is joshturner@prtpodcast.com, joshturner@prtpodcast.com. And if you want to send anything to the show, the address is 6001 West Palmer Lane. Let me make sure I got this correctly. 6001 West Palmer Lane, Suite 370, PMB 131, Austin, Texas, 78727. Palmer is spelled P-A-R-M-E-R. So that's 6001 West Palmer Lane, Suite 370, PMB 131, Austin, Texas, 78727. We've actually gotten a lot of interesting things that have come to us. Pretty cool stuff. So, and I appreciate each and every one of you who've sent things. And as always, we do send things too. We have a giveaway for this show. It'll be like all the other shows. We put the link up. The official link to the giveaway. We'll put it on the Paranormal Roundtable page on Facebook. So you'll go to Facebook, and there will be a link to this show. Leave your comment below. You know, yeah, I loved it, I hated it, whatever. And if you leave a comment, and you'll be entered to win a prize for the week. And we give away all kinds of stuff, PRT swag. If you're from out of state, you will get some pretty cool Texas souvenir merchandise. And you always, you'll get an autographed book. So this week will be no different. And also don't forget about every month we have the Willie Williams art contest. And so each month we have a different cryptid. As of the recording of this show, this is being recorded at the end of June. So I can't tell you exactly what the cryptid is. But whatever it is, make sure that you enter it in your submissions, and don't forget about that. It happens every month. Our groups on Facebook are Paranormal Roundtable, which is the main group, and then we have Josh Turner, the fan page, which was made by some fans, and then we have the Josh Wolf Turner, which is the official fan page. And then we have the official Paranormal Roundtable page. Then we have Paranormal Encounters, which is Tony's. And then we have Paranormal Lounge, which is Nellie's. Then we have Whisper to a Scream, which is Ryan's. Now we're all one big family, PRT. And we all work together. And we function as a unit. And that's how we do it. That's how we roll. So that being said, what else do we have going on? Anything else?
I think you just about covered everything. There's the website, the email, the Facebook groups, the giveaway, the art contest.
Let's see.
Mailing address.
Mailing address. I already got that.
Yeah.
Friend request. If you send me a friend request on Facebook, I will not approve it unless you let me know that you are a listener of the show. And if you don't, and if you don't tell me that, then I'm not going to approve your friend request. Simple as that. Had too many problems with trolls. I've had some things going on with different people, a couple different people, so I just have to be real careful. So there's that, and so I guess that's it. Without further ado, we can introduce our guest. Anthony, you want to introduce our guest?
So tonight we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Shotsy. Would you like to introduce yourself, Shotsy?
Yes, I am Shotsy. I live in Utah. I am married and I have 5 kids. 2 dogs and 2 cats, and love and life, and love to camp. That's really it.
And you are, so you claim that you love life. We'll get back to that later. I'm just kidding. I'm sure you do. I'm just joking. I was like, yeah, okay. So
gotta keep them honest. You never know.
Yeah, you claim that you love life, so you claim. But so here's the thing. You are a Ute, right?
Yes, I am. I'm a Ute. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You and so you're Native American, and do you live on the reservation, or are you not on?
I lived in the next town from the reservation in Roosevelt. Yeah.
Okay, in Roosevelt, Utah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So that being said, we've been friends for a long time, and
Yes.
we've talked for years. It seems like, and so you have had some experiences, and so we talked, and I wanted you to be able to come on and tell the stories in your own words.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, so where do you want to start? Because like you have quite a bit of stuff to so I just you want to start from your earliest experiences as a child, or do you want to go forward into where do you want to begin?
Oh, I could just begin anywhere and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Fireworks.
Is that what's going on?
Yeah, fireworks.
Oh, that's why the dog is freaking out.
That's why the dog's is barking.
Poor thing.
Yes.
At least it's not a skinwalker or a dog man.
Or is it?
Oh, no, he's probably shooting off fireworks. Eh?
So, do you have your earliest experiences that you had were when you were how old were you?
Oh, okay. I was young, about 12 years old, and my dad was working for some people, his sister, and well, he called him her sister and stuff. But there was a incident that was happening up in this town up north from Roosevelt, and they were some happenings going on with Bigfoot. And so they decided, well, we're going to go look for some cows and calves and whatnot. And they went out and they did it by foot. They didn't do it by horse. They did it by foot to get the cows and stuff because it was just a small pasture. So when they went out, they saw one of the calves had been sliced open, it seemed like, but it was more like ripped open, and there was entrails that was gone. The liver, all that stuff was gone inside. Even the eyeballs were gone, he said. And they said that it was because of the Bigfoot that was roaming around in that area. And so, anyways, they said it was roaming around that area. It was getting into people's trash. It was messing with the dogs. And they decided that they would just try and chase it out of there. But I don't know what became of that after that. And so I was like, 12 years old when that happened. And later on, as it went on into the 80s and stuff, I used to party like all the time. And I went to this, it was before I even knew about Skinwalker Ranch being a hotbed, a hot spot. And there was a party there on this homestead that was like west of the main homestead there. And we were partying there. You could see things running through the trees. Ooh. And it was running through the trees. My friend was asking me, what are those things running over that way? So we thought it was just somebody, and somebody was looking at them, and they were saying that they saw some eye shine, or, did you see that and everything? And I'm like, no, I didn't see anything, but I just seen the shadows running through those trees because it was surrounded by trees and everything. And it was like a really old homestead there. And so that was one of the things that kind of like, what's going on here? But, on the res, it's the res, everything's going to happen on the res, And a lot of people had stated once, there used to be like a little party place down there that people used to see things running around or ducking behind the sagebrush and all that stuff, So that was kind of eerie to think about. That really kind of stuck out in my mind. I never really told anybody because people would say, well, you guys drunk and, whatever, but when you're sitting there and you see it, you sober up. When you see something like that, it kind of frightens you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, that was one of the times that I seen it was something really different, to actually see things like that running through, like shadows. You just it's just a mass, running through there. And it was really crazy because some were small, like they were like crawling on on their, say, on fours, and some were just standing up, running around, which was so eerie to me. And yeah, me and my girlfriend seen that. That was pretty crazy. And some other few people seen them too, but they saw the eye shine. I never did. Yeah, so
So
that
these
was one of the things.
so these shadows, were y'all able to make out the shapes of them? Like, do they have a humanoid shape or like a canine
Yeah,
shape? Or, I mean, what?
yeah, it was a humanoid shape. Yeah. It was pretty tall too. It was really crazy because, you know, you can distinguish between a man and a person, the height and everything like that. And yeah, there was like 4 of them that we saw. Yeah.
And do
And
you think
just,
that they were Sasquatch or I mean,
uh, they were, they were tall and skinny. They weren't big like a Sasquatch would be. No, they were tall and skinny, and they were slim, and they're, oh geez, it's really crazy too because their arms were like really weird because they weren't like regular arms. They kind of looked like they were like longer than it should be. Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy, and I kind of like nervous when I talk about that because I never ever told my husband or anything. I never really told anybody till now, and so that's one of the things that happened down there. And I was on the ranch, and the guy that was a guard down there at the Skinwalker Ranch, he said I knew him, and he was a really good person. And I introduced him to another person that's on TV too, and he him and the guy got really good acquaintances, and we got really good acquaintances with the guy that was on the ranch. And he was telling me, you went and partied on this hot spot. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He goes, that's when everything was running around happening, and I was like, oh wow, I did not know that, because I didn't know that they were having those issues back then in the 80s, so it was really, really, really crazy. And so with him, when he was the guard there, he said everything that was stated in his Skinwalker book, The Hunt for the Skinwalker, was all true. And they had incidents there like, well, one lady that worked there said that when she put her coffee cup somewhere, it would be like in the bathroom or, like on another counter or something like that, And so that was the only thing that I got from them. And it was really peaceful down there and everything. He had 2 dogs. There were 2 black dogs that were there. They were just so friendly and playful and used to get in the water and jump on us when they were all wet with paws and everything. And it was me and my daughter. We usually went down there and visited him. And every time he saw us, he'd always go and come to the gate and talk with us. And so, yeah, he was a pretty cool person. And but one of the people that we went on Skinwalker Ranch one time. It was me, this other guy that was on TV, another guy that was a producer, and my daughter. We went on the ranch, and it was at nighttime, and we walked up, and we were like on the ledge of one of the hills. We looked towards the north, and we saw this red light. It was a red light, and it was going across the plain or the plateau of it. We didn't know if it was like a bike because it looked like a backlight of a bike or motorcycle. But when we was looking at it, it was going straight across, and we were like, that is something else. That has to be like I don't know, because there's no roads in that area right there. And so it was just floating across, and then it stopped showing itself. And we seen that it was going towards the west. So when it did, it stopped. And my look at that over there. So we all looked over to the west of the ranch, and there was a white light, like a white light, looked like a cigarette, a little cigarette or something. And it was coming towards this where the red light had disappeared. And then it was gone, and we're like, would that have been a car or something? But there was no cars in that area or roads in that area where we were looking, And so we're like, okay, well, that was one experience that we did, and that was crazy. And so after that happened, the next day we ended up going to Dark Canyon, which is like 12, maybe 9 miles from the north of Roosevelt. We went up there to go and find Bigfoot, go up there and do some things. And this guy, our friend, he wanted to find out what was up in that dark canyon, because he went to these other dark canyons and they weren't the real ones that he went to. So we had to tell him which one to go to. There's 2 places that is Dark Canyon, but we took him to the one that was above the place where it's supposed to. We went up
That was in
there.
southern Utah, right?
This was in northern Utah.
Oh, okay, because I remember
Eastern, Utah.
Yeah, I knew it was in the east, but because I know Bryan Head. I thought there was a place near Bryan Head called Dark Canyon. Maybe I'm wrong. I could have swore that, because Bryan Head's, it's only about 3.5 hours maybe from Las Vegas, unless the Mandela effect has changed that. I don't know. But, it's like, who knows now? I mean, but I've been all over Utah, and I had a good friend that was a Ute, and y'all's name for, correct me if I'm wrong, but the name for Bigfoot was Pocoho or Poco? How do you say it?
I have no idea how they say it.
Yeah. It was called Poco or Poco or Poco. Anyways, it means like the old hairy man.
Oh, okay. I've never heard Bigfoot in Ute. My dad just used to call him Big Guy. The big guy that lives in the trees and the mountains, So.
Well, what's funny? I mean, people think that there's all this like, each native American tribe has their own this and that, and it's funny how outsiders really don't understand reservation life. Like, I can't understand it. My cousin lived with the Shoshone for a long time, so he has like a better understanding of it. And he even went to jail up there, on the reservation, and he was with a Shoshone girl. But like, whenever you're immersed in that culture, it's like another life. It's a whole nother. And my friend, who was Ute, and he introduced me to his grandfather, and he said his name was Gray Dove, and they had this whole little ceremony, and I was there, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, So he comes up and he starts like rubbing my hand and going and chanting, in this weird kind of chant, in this circular motion on my hand. And he's all like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I was like, yeah, what? He goes, your hands are very rough. You need lotion. You need to put some.
Oh my gosh.
he goes, and then he goes, right now they're a little bit dirty. You might want to get some Perel or something. I was thinking he's going to give me some profound, like wisdom he's going to bestow upon me. And then he just went back to chanting and dancing. And I was like, wow. And so I asked my friend Johnny, I was like, what is this? He goes, well, we're just hanging out, dude. We're just drinking. It's no big ceremony. And I was thinking we were there for some kind of big, but it was just you're just hanging out, just having a good time. So,
oh wow,
yeah. But everybody thinks there's some big. But I just remember him talking about Bigfoot and his grandfather calling it the Pocoho or Poco or I can't remember how it's pronounced. But anyway, that's what I thought that the Ute name was for it. But I mean, it depends. I mean, there's a lot of people who, they live around the reservation. I got some friends up there near their Mescalera, and I talked to them about it. And their younger generation, they don't know anything about any of those stories. They're just like, yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I had a couple people that I met when I was staying at the Inn of the Mountain Gods, and one of the guys worked there, and I got to know him pretty well, and he was telling me some story. He's a security guy, and his nephew, like, he's like, dude, he goes, my nephew, he goes, he knows nothing about our culture. Like, he's like, and then I met him, and one day I was up there, and I was up there for a few days, and we were gambling, and I met his nephew who actually did security too. And he looked totally different, and like he had long hair, which a lot of Native men still do wear long hair, and that wasn't unusual. But like after I saw him after his shift was over, he was wearing like a Megadeth shirt, and and he was like hanging out riding his skateboard, and I was all like, oh, okay, like yeah, there's a complete different, it's a whole different culture, and he knows absolutely nothing of what his the previous generation, like they're two different people,
Uh-huh.
But it's sad though to see that, because that's why I try to instill in my nephews to pass on those stories. My great grandmother was Comanche, and I think it's important that a lot of natives did not have a written language, and most of them didn't. And so storytelling and retelling the stories and the names of places and things, and that it's very important. It's a very important aspect of the native culture, and so. I'm glad that you're able to come and tell your, these things, because a lot of people don't have any clue what it's like in that life, And and one more thing I want to say, when you're talking about Skinwalker Ranch, now a lot of people don't know this, and I'm pretty sure you're aware of this. As a Ute, the Navajo were the enemies of the Ute,
Right.
and the Navajo put a curse. Like they cursed the Ute. Of course, there was back and forth. It wasn't just, and there was intertribal warfare at one time, and so the area of the Skinwalker Ranch, that land was cursed by the Navajo medicine men, and it is in the path of the Skinwalker, and so the Utes tend to avoid that area. The ones that I met anyway, because there is a curse upon them. From the Navco, yeah. So anyway, that so you were over there partying, just thinking, hey, this is just a good time, and not realizing that you're in enemy territory, I guess, right?
I guess you could say that, yeah.
Yeah, and so you saw what could have been shadows of a Bigfoot, or they could have been human, like shadows or demons. You don't know. You have no idea, right?
I have no idea what they were. No. Yeah, it's like I said, this is the first time I ever said it here, because it never bothered me back in the day or anything like that. We just chalked it up, whatever. But I was sober after that happened, and we went home. But yeah, it was crazy. It was very crazy to see something like that running around, and we just thought it was somebody out there, because it was just an old house, and they didn't have no bathroom, so we just chalked it up to somebody out there messing around and, using the bathroom or something, I don't know. It was really crazy.
Well, when
So,
stuff like that happens, you have to rationalize it somehow.
yeah, yeah.
And so you became friends with, and I'm not going to give away his name, but I think he wrote a book too. I think
Yes, he did.
he did, yeah, and I know who he is, and so I think I've read most of it. I never got to finish it. I hate that. I'm like the world's. I'll get halfway through a book, and then I can't never get to it. But he wrote a book. It was his memoirs or something like that.
Yeah.
Pertaining to that, yeah, and like I said, if you don't want to say his name, that's fine. But he was connected to the ranch, and you said that you talked to him about Skinwalker Ranch, and that he told you all of it was true.
Yeah. And even the guards guy, he said it was all true. The woman that worked there said it was all true. All the stuff that did happen on there, it did. And, all the stuff that happened at the ranch, some of it just died down. It just died down. And so, but there is still ongoing little bits and pieces of things happening there. There's things that look in people's windows, and as for one person that told me her friend was in his room, and he lives above the Skinwalker Ranch, and he said that he felt like somebody was watching him or something was watching him through his window. So he went over there, and he went and pulled his blinds, and he said something was standing there. And now his house, his window is far from the ground. It's not like your usual, it's like way up. He said this thing must have been probably 7 or 8 feet tall, because it was gray and it had like almond eyes, and I don't remember the nose, but he said it was gray and it was just looking at him. And then he threw down the blinds and went in the living room and told his mom, I guess. And he said that was the only thing that he said he saw. But when he went out there to go look for prints, he said it was just no prints, because the ground it's on, it's hard, so he didn't see any prints or anything like that on that. So that was one of the things that they said. Now, getting back to Dark Canyon, as we were going up there, we was walking along this old log road. We went probably a half a mile, and it was just me, my daughter, and this guy. And we were walking around. We went around this corner, and there was this one little corner space there that you could it had a little campfire there. You could build a tent there if you wanted to. And we passed it, and we were like talking, laughing around, banging on the tree, and sitting there yelling Bigfoot things and everything like that, just ordinary things that, you want to hear Bigfoot yelling around and everything. But anyway, as we were going, we said we better turn back because it was getting dark. So we decided to go back. And as we was going back, I saw this light just flash. And I was like, what the heck is that? So I didn't say anything to the guy and my daughter. We just kept on walking, and I seen it again. And I was like, what is that? So I didn't say anything. So as we passed that part, we were walking, and we could feel something watching us. And my daughter's like, I feel something watching us. And I'm like, I don't know. But before we went in there, we didn't feel eerie or nothing. It was just a regular day. But as we were leaving, we started going faster, me and my daughter. And then when this guy turned around to look back of us, he said, did you see that? And I go, what? And he goes, it looked like a camera flash. And I said, I knew it. I knew I seen something, So he was like, let's go over here. And my daughter's like, no, because he's the guy that kind of goes out there and looks for it. Anyways, we went over there, and we were looking, and we didn't see anything. So we're like, okay, let's go back to the trucks. And as we were going, we were like talking, getting our mind, deflecting our mind to something nice, positive, and we could feel something just watching us walking towards the trucks. So as we got to the back of the trucks, we were talking about stuff, and he brings up demons and talks about those. And my daughter's like, let's not talk about those, And we're like, okay, well, we better get going. So we got in the truck. As we were entering our truck and he was entering his Jeep, we smelled this really awful stench. I mean, it was like dead animal mixed in with freaking trash that's been out for days or something. It just came out of nowhere. Just the wind just carried it. And the guy, he's like, "Did you smell that?" And I go, "Yes, I did." And my daughter was like, "What is that smell?" And I'm like, "I don't know what it is, but we better go, you know." And so we got in our truck. We went down, and there's these 3 old cabins that was the forestry service cabins, but they're abandoned. So we pulled into there, and we were just sitting there, and we were talking with him. We were both in the truck, and he got out of his Jeep, and he was sitting there talking to us, and we could hear knocking sounds coming from the cabin. And he was like, "Did you hear that?" And I go, "Yes." He goes, "Let's go over there." And we're like, "No," you know. So not brave, And so he's like, "Oh, did you?" And it did it again. It just knocked really loud, and it was on a log. It was a log cabin, or yeah, it was made out of wood. So it was knocking, and we're like, "Oh my gosh!" And then all of a sudden, there comes this car just coming rearing up through this that was coming up from on the main road, the main dirt road. We were like 100 yards from this main dirt road, but as it was going by, someone stopped really fast, and they can't see us from there because it's dark, really dark, and they can't see us. And it stopped, and it just made this really like a holler. He hollered like that you would hear natives holler and stuff, and it was like a warrior call. And we're like, "Oh heck," and when it stopped, you know how the dust will just go right in front of your vehicle when you stop, and it does that. It never did that. And I'm like, I noticed that, and I was like, "Oh, we better get out of here." So we all get back in our vehicles. We back up, and he goes flying down to the main road, flying onto the main road. Now this main road is very rocky, but we started hauling butt down that road. As I was looking back, this tail light, it just vanishes, and we're like, I told my daughter, the tail light, it's gone. It's not there. So I don't know if they turned it off or what. It was weird. So we went down, and that was the end of the night and of that. But I don't know what that smell was, but it was pretty rank, and it was really, really weird. And my daughter said it smelled like dog, is what she said, like a dog, like a wet dog. So I was like, I don't know, it just smelled really awful. And so in that same area, one time, me and my husband, it was in Uinta Canyon, which is below Dark Canyon. We went up there to go camping, and it was our end of September and the beginning of October in that area. And we were just in a tent camp. We went up there. There was just a camp hostess, but he was gone, and there was nobody else up there. So we were like sitting there. We stayed up there for 3 days. The first night, it was dark. We heard coyotes yipping, doing their thing. We had a hoot owl that was by our camp. He was hooting away. And we were like, okay, we went and bedded down and everything. Nothing happened that night. The second night, we were like, okay, we don't hear the hoot owl. Everything gone quiet. And we said, let's just go to bed. And we went to bed, and there was no coyote yipping. And it was about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And I decided I need to go outside and do things. And my husband was snoring away and everything like that. And all of a sudden, just this god awful scream. It was huge. It just resonated into your body. That's how bad it was. It was loud. And we knew then that was a Bigfoot. It was huge, and he was close. And we're like, my husband gets up out of a dead sleep and just grabs for the gun, and I'm just sitting there like wide awake, because it was just crazy. that was the next day. He said it was a donkey, because there was donkeys in that area. And I was like, that didn't sound like no donkey to me. So we went that way, and it was really crazy. And we went home after that. We stayed another night, and hopefully we want to hear it again, but we never did. So after that, my daughter had told me one time she was coming home from another town below Skinwalker Ranch. And as she was driving, she was going 50 miles an hour, and there was this thing that was running across. She said she saw it coming out of this dip along the road, and it come up, and it was running across the road, but it looked like, how strobe lights, she said, is strobe lights kind of make you have that little, the movements. When you have a strobe light on, it has the movements like that.
Oh, right. Yeah, it makes the motion look kind of choppy instead of just fluid.
Yeah, yes. She said it was a small man running across that road with just like that. It was just going choppy across the road. And it went down into another ravine. And she was like, I'm going to go home. And she went and just kept going, because she's like, yeah, people state they see things that run around down there. There's little people that used to live in this old Bala Hollow resort, and it was a hotel. And it was abandoned, and so they decided just to tear it down because it was an eyesore, And so they said when the construction workers were there, they saw these little people running out of these buildings, and they were running towards the reservation town down in that area, and they were looking back at it. They were looking back at them, and they would give them really mean look, And it was like, maybe because you guys went and tore down their house,
Yeah.
They'd be mean looking at you, but they said they're mean people. And my dad always used to tell me, when you see smoke coming from the ground, or you go by a cedar bush or cedar tree or something like that, leave something there, like tobacco or a piece of clothing,
But because you're in
anything
their
that you have.
territory.
Yeah.
Why cedar?
Cedar trees, I don't know. He just always told me never, ever camp by cedar trees, because that's where the little people stay. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So we never, ever did camp by cedar trees or anything like that. So it was different on that part. I was like, okay, we won't do that. It was just something that old people told us not to do.
Okay, so what are we going to do, Anthony?
Yeah.
Well, if I see little people on our property out there where there's a bunch of cedar trees, I don't know, I guess I'll try to stomp on them, squish them.
Oh my gosh.
Well, the alternative is that they come in our house and they're running around in our AC ducts and
Trilogy of
stuff.
horror. Now, she just said to give them something.
Yeah, to give them something.
Well, I'm bigger and stronger than them. They should give me something.
What if they give you like a spear in the back while you're making a sandwich or something?
Well, then I'll give them a boot to their tiny little face.
Oh my God, you're so violent.
Oh my gosh, how could you do that to him?
I'm bigger and stronger.
I guess because he's thinking of like satanic Smurfs or something.
Yeah,
Satanic Smurf.
Yeah, I don't trust those little sneaky things, whatever they are.
Duende.
Mind your business and I'll mind mine.
And in Spanish, we call them duende, and they're not a good thing either. You don't mess with them.
Nature is merciless.
Oh, no.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And we have cedar trees all over our property. We gotta get rid of them.
Well, if you see little holes of smoke coming through, then you never know.
I'm pouring gasoline down those holes.
Oh my gosh, they never
Wow.
did nothing to you.
They're just living their lives.
And they're never going to. I will make sure of that.
Well, you know, they
Well,
say one cedar tree, a full-grown cedar tree, takes 30 gallons of water a day. They
oh my
They suck
gosh.
the land dry. Yeah, it turns everything to rock.
Yeah, they're greedy, ugly trees.
And they turn, and then they destroy all the other vegetation around them. So they're a invasive species here in Texas. So we get rid of them. We burn them out.
Oh my gosh.
But what
Yeah,
if
we
the
got
little
a
people
lot of
are?
those here.
Well, I mean, what if the little people are actually using, or they're the ones taking the water? They just use the little cedar trees as like an aqueduct, to redirect the water to them.
All the
I
more
don't
reason to
know.
burn them and squish them and whatever.
Oh my god!
Wage war on those little people.
Yeah. Okay.
You guys are crazy.
What if they use magic on you?
Yeah.
Not gonna work on me
I-
because I'm protected. I'm washing the blood of Jesus Christ.
There
Not if
you
you're
go.
stomping
Amen
and
to
killing them
that.
for no reason.
It's called
No.
divine punishment, righteous fury.
Oh my god! They're gonna have righteous fury if you mess with them for no reason. You got to leave them some. Just give them some tobacco.
There you go. Just give them tobacco and then they'll leave you alone.
I'll spit some
'Cause you
dip
gave
out
them
in it.
something.
I'll spit some
Instead
dip
of
in their little
waging
hole.
war.
Instead of waging a war. No. And one of our nephews though, he'll give them some other kind of something, and then they'll get all high, and then they'll start attacking us.
They'll come knocking on the door asking for more.
I gave them some of the vape juice, dude.
Then they probably want to come and get snacks too, along with it.
Yeah,
After he's over there giving them the Delta THC or whatever it is.
we'll give them the little Keebler elves snacks.
Keeper else.
I always thought that
Whatever
when I
those are
think of
called.
these little Duende, I always think of that little trilogy of horror movie where that thing was chasing that woman around with the little spear.
Oh yeah, the little African doll.
Oh, the cat's eye.
No, not Cat's Eye. Cat's Eye is a weird little creature too. He's the little monito. He got thrown into the fan and he got killed or whatever. But I mean,
Little knife laying there.
that's what he gets, man. He shouldn't be messing with. Now there was this little doll. It's an old movie. If you look up trilogy of horror.
Oh, the one that has the crazy hair
Yeah.
and a wide mouth.
Yes. And he runs around chasing that lady. I mean, granted, the lady was pretty annoying. She seemed like she needed to be chased around, but
Karen.
she seemed like she'd made some too many complaints or something. But yeah. So anyway, so you had a pretty colorful. You were hanging out with this individual who knows a lot about the Skinwalker Ranch, and y'all spent time together.
Yes, we're really good friends. Really good friends.
And can you divulge any of the stories he's told you?
Okay, one story to share with you is that one time he said that he was on the ranch and he was just, messing around and everything, just doing its thing. And he said in front of him popped up this wolf.
Whoa,
It was
like just a wolf?
Yeah, it was a wolf that popped in front of him. And he said he couldn't believe it because it was gray and it was looking at him. And then all of a sudden he said he just was gone in a cloud of smoke. And it was a big cloud of smoke. And he said that was the only experience that he had there. He must have different experiences, but that was the experience that he had seen.
See, that's so weird. I don't know what that is because, okay, there's a place out here called Devil's Backbone, and the Devil's Backbone is kind of like a stretch of road that's almost like Skinwalker Ranch, but it's like a larger area. And the Devil's Backbone stretches between like 3 different towns, and it's weird because there was it was on Unsolved Mysteries, and on Unsolved Mysteries, the kid that was possessed, he ended up he said that he was he himself, I think, was part native descended, but he saw a vision of a wolf, and he said that it leapt into him. And I did a little investigating on that particular story, and from what I was able to uncover from locals and people that were in that area that had heard the story, What they told us was that the guy had said that he was, it like literally leapt into his body, and it was a wolf, and then he gained all this knowledge of all these different historical events that had taken place, and he knew everything about that place after that happened. But he doesn't remember, after he went into a trance-like state, he doesn't remember anything he did or said while he was in that trance-like state. And now they touch on that on the Unsolved Mysteries episode. And of course, it was Burt Wall that wrote the books about that. And then, but that's interesting because, you know, Skinwalker Ranch, you're talking about your friend having the wolf. He sees the wolf.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember when the folks moved in? The first family, I don't know, that actually came out and talked about it. They bought the book "Hunt for the Skinwalker" by George Knapp.
Yeah, the Shermans.
Yeah, the Shermans. So they had all these because I read that book and I remember they had all these things happening, and the very first incident that took place was a supernaturally large wolf.
Yes.
That just showed up, and it wasn't aggressive. It didn't do anything untoward, and then all of a sudden, it decided to attack a calf, and then they shot it multiple times, if I remember correctly, and nothing happened. Like pieces of flesh flew off of it, but it didn't hurt it. It didn't kill it. It didn't lay it down. Didn't do anything.
Yeah, because they said that the wolf came up to the man who owned it, and they were petting it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when he saw the calf moving. That's when he went over and latched on. That's when they started shooting him.
Yeah, and at first it was like, I can't remember if I read it like that, like if it was petting him, because I've heard that story. I've heard it told that way, or if it just came up real close to them and was friendly. But I think you're right. I think they were like petting it or something.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it just kind of veered away from them and went after one of the calves and just attacked it. Now, when they started shooting it, it didn't do anything.
No.
Nor was there any blood.
Nope.
And that is, if you stop and you think about it, folks, okay, that is how evil also gets into, you know, it shows up, it's benign at first, and it's all like, hey, I'm cool, you know, let's all be friends, no. And then it turns and boom, it bites it victimizes something or someone, you know, and then that's how it always happens. That's how evil gets into, and you know, and then if the good people don't do anything and try to stop it, well, then the evil just continues to devour. That sounds like a classic demonic move right there, you know, and then of course that's the whole theme, you know, is this that he saw a wolf. The guy out of Devil's Backbone, same thing. He sees this wolf. The next thing you know, he's being taken over by some sort of spirit. I don't know. I mean, it makes you wonder what's going on with that and why that particular animal.
Yeah.
You know, why does it choose that form?
I have no idea, but he did see that. He said he just freaked out. He didn't know what to do. He just seen it appear out of nowhere, and then poof, it was a cloud of dust and smoke and black, gray smoke. I don't know, but it kind of freaked him out, and he wanted to know more because he's that type person that is like, I want to see more.
Yeah.
You know, and so
was he out by himself when that happened, or did he have people with him? Or
I think I'm not sure if he had somebody with him or if he had. I think he said he did have somebody with him because that person freaked out too. And he's a pretty good person. He's a really cool guy. You know, like you said, he has a book that came out. He's got another book that's coming out, and he's coming out here probably end of this month. You know, to look and stuff, and to look around some more, and
Well, tell him to get in touch with me, and
okay.
and you know, maybe he can come on and talk about some of the stuff that he's got going on, the investigations. He doesn't have to divulge everything, but you know, he can tell the listeners about what's going on out there.
Oh yeah,
because that would be very interesting.
Yeah. Yep, he is a very interesting person.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and you are too. So let's get back to you. Like you had okay. So at this point in time, you're in your early 20s, right? The last incident.
The last, yeah, I was like not the one up in Dark Canyon. I was, gosh, 49, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you had the incident that at the Skinwalker Ranch. You were in your early 20s, right? That was when this first.
I was in my teens.
Oh, you were young, real young.
I was very young. Yes.
Yeah. So,
I was about 16, 17 when that happened. Yeah.
Okay, and so that was only like 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Oh yes, definitely.
I'm just messing with you.
I'm
giving you a hard time. I know that my age. I always tell everyone that I'm older than I am. I'm always like, I'm 35.
Oh.
Yeah, you don't look a day over 30. I'm like, I know.
Oh. I see. I know what you're getting at. Eh?
No. I use skin. My wife's got all this stuff that and there's all kinds of it, and it's all in the bathroom. So I just start putting it on my face, and I started looking younger, but I can't even tell you what it is or why it is or what it does. And when she said, "What are you using?" I said, "I don't know, that soap, that bar." She goes, "I don't use that," and I was like, "Well, I'm using it, and it seems to be working." You know, and she's like, "Well, I don't use that one. It's not expensive enough."
Turns out it's some kind of bathroom cleaner.
It's a bathroom cleaner. It's liquid plumber.
Oh,
you know,
my gosh.
no wonder it's eating away the bags under my eyes. I was wondering why that. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Next time you see me, like my eyes are falling out the bottom there. You know. No, it's some kind of soap, but she doesn't like the way that the bar, like it's kind of comes apart, you know. But us men, we'll just keep using it until it crumbles into dust. So, yeah, I just keep using
that's
it.
the truth.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll have the 5-in-1 of the bath wash. It only not only is it a toothpaste and a mouthwash, but it also it cleans your hair. It's also a gel for your hair if you don't put water in it, and it's also a body wash.
And a hand sanitizer.
Ah, there you go.
I got it
Safety
at the
first.
men's Bath and Body Works, the Wish Bath and Body Works. It's called It'll Do. It'll work.
It'll work.
So what we got going on? Okay, so let's back up for a minute. You went to to Dark Canyon, and I swear there's 2 of those, but you went to the one. Yeah, you went to the one in the north.
Yeah, there's the main one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And now there's a lot of dark canyons in Utah. I was given a story, a really pretty scary Bigfoot story up in northern Utah, the northeast, and these people were walking down this spiraling canyon, and this thing was basically following them, and they could see it as they look up, and they would see them, and then they had to keep walking to try to get away from it. It was like a really big, broad-shouldered, Bigfoot looking creature, but they said it had really skinny legs, and I was like, wow, that's weird. It was like a bodybuilder that skipped leg day. So that's a weird thing. They told me that story, you know, so I'm gonna tell that one day. I was gonna do one just about misshapen Bigfoot. You know, some of you got these different stories of these weird Bigfoot, you know, like this one this guy described as a huge underbite to where it looked like the top of its mouth was deformed or something. I was like, that's weird. But I guess it takes all kinds. So you had an incident, a dogman incident.
I don't know. We didn't know if it was a dogman, but everyone said it was a werewolf. I don't know when it happened. And like I say, you know, people have different views of what in this incident when it happened. They had cops. Well, let me start from here. My sister lived on top of this hill, and she had the kids, and my son was down in there, down and spending the night with her and everything, playing with the kids and stuff. And then her boyfriend was a cop in this. He was a tribal cop. Came up, told my sister, you better get the kids into the house. Don't let them come out because there's something coming this way. And so she let all the people, all the kids go in the house and everything. And they decided to open the window in the living room. And she was like, no, we need to go downstairs. So they went downstairs and they were all huddled in this bedroom that she had. And they could hear the cops coming, and they hear the sirens. So I guess they headed right back up into the living room, and they were looking out the window, and they said they could see all these patrol cars, just sirens going, and there was the trash can was being put, doing its thing. Dogs are barking and everything like that. And on the scanner, one of my family was telling me that they were chasing a werewolf, and it was going really fast. One of the guys that was chasing it said it was leaping from house to house. When there was houses that were close, it was leaping house to house. And then it started running down by the river bottom, and they were still chasing it. And some guy had shot it, but it didn't do anything. It didn't flinch or nothing like that. It just kept on going. And this other place is like from another town over. It's a small little town. And it was like, oh, geez, about 5 miles, maybe 6 miles away from where they saw it. It ran down there, and it got there like in 10 minutes, 15 minutes flat. And it was gone after that. But yeah, it caused a lot of commotion. And there was also another story of a woman that was she was on this road, and she was coming around the bend. She stopped, and that's when she said this dog man or werewolf thing she said it was a giant dog. It looked at her, came over, and slammed his paw or his hand on her hood. And then it just walked off, like it disturbed him walking, and it just slammed his hand on the hood. She turned around, went to the police station, and the police there said, "We don't want to hear it. We're not going to investigate it. Leave it alone." So she decided to go to higher people, and they said the same thing to her. Don't bother with any of that. Don't say nothing to nobody. But obviously she did, And so anyways, and a couple of years go by, and then we hear another story from one of the people that we know's grandmother. It was during deer season, and our culture is that when you hunt for the first time, you give the elder your first kill of the deer. And so the person gave the elder, and it was a grandmother, the first deer that she had shot. So she was skinning it, deboning it, doing it, cutting it up and everything like that. She decided to throw couple of bones to the dogs that were outside. Now there's a fenced in area, and there's a lawn, and there's a sidewalk. And she said that when it was going down it was evening, it was still lit a little bit to where she can see the dogs outside just, gnawing on their bones and stuff. But when she sat there, she saw something out there just like, chewing at a really weird way. So she went over there, and she had a screen door, and she was like an old native lady was like, "Hi, you get away from the stupid dog, get away from my dog's bone, give it back," or something like that. And this thing looked up at her, and she couldn't believe her eyes. And this thing come walking towards her, and it just put his hands up on the screen door and looked at her. And she sat there and just started praying. And then it just kind of looked at her, and she looked down. She didn't want to look at it. And it just walked away and went out the fence. She said it was a skinwalker. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so, yeah, that was a really crazy story, and they have a lot of things down there running around. A few months ago, there was something running around, getting into their trash, letting the dogs bark all crazy. They heard a cry from the river. And now when they said they hear a cry from the river, everybody says it's a water baby. And my aunt a long time ago was telling us a story about that. She said she went up to this lake, and they had to figure out how much water is supposed to come out of the lake for irrigation for the farmers down below. So they went up there. They were assessing the lake or the pond area and everything. And there's these tall weeds and cattails all the way around it and everything. So she went over to the edge of the water. She looked down, and she saw something coming up, like, swimming up towards her, but it was facing her. And she's like, what the heck is that? So she called them other people over, the guys come over and look at this thing. So when they were looking in there, they saw this face in the water. It had little arms, and it was like, waving, like, treading. And the bottom she couldn't see because of the grass, but she said this thing looked like a bulldog. The face was squished in. It had a little bit of hair on its head, and it looked like, the skin, it was slimy. It was weird. Then she saw others, like little ones, coming up from the back of it. And they were all like facing these people that were looking into the water. And that's when of the guys said, let's go. We will not deal with that right now. Let's go. We'll deal with this thing later. And they said it was water babies. Now, water babies, a long time ago, my mother told me that this one lady went down to the river bottom, and she had a little baby. And when the little baby would cry, she would tell her, shush, 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 And so they were doing laundry down there by the riverbank. And she said that the lady got up to go and put the laundry into a basket. And when she went back, the baby was gone. And they said that the water baby had gotten it. Water babies in Nevada at Pyramid Lake, you could hear them out in the Lake Powell. They can hear them crying. And they said, when you hear something like that crying by water, do not go there.
That's crazy. So, because I mean, like in the Mexican culture, we have La Llorona, which is like, but it's like a woman who drowned her children.
Yeah.
And that's all the time we have for this week, folks. Join us next week for the second of this two-part episode for more strange and bizarre encounters with cryptids, creatures, and all kinds of supernatural and paranormal phenomena from Utah and the Skinwalker Ranch. But until next week, from all of us here at the PRT family, good night.